So, so all this kind of playlist stuff kind of motivated you to make the social media North thing, right?
I think that one of the big things for me was coming to the first playlist here in Orlando. It was really early for us as far as creating social media content as a career and like as a job. And it was kind of like very disconnected. So you'd make stuff on your phone and then you'd get likes and engagement and stuff. But you'd be like, I don't know, who are, like, is anybody actually watching? Is anyone actually
Yeah.
doing stuff? And then you come here and it's like, oh, there's real people behind this. Like, you get to meet other creators and you also get to meet the people who watch the content. So it's like it makes it real. And I think that's one of the things that's been really lacking in Canada is that you can be a content creator anywhere in the world, and Canada has some amazing content creators, but we need to kind of be like, oh, well, you can actually go meet the people who watch the videos and meet other people who make videos and other content in person for real. So that was kind of the impetus for that, for sure.
And that's definitely a thing that I've seen just even through today, like scrolling through social. You see everybody's talking about playlists, everybody's doing this, and then you see a couple of other Canadian creators talking about, oh, there should be something like this. And I as soon as I saw that, I was like, I commented social media North, and I was like, so I saw that, and I was like, wow, it's crazy, and it's like that you've already got it going this far, and like May is coming up. I'm so excited for it. It should be a great time.
Oh yeah, I'm super excited as well, and it's funny because we've been talking to a few people here who are like super excited about it as well. And also what's really great is that, you know, we talked to people from Playlist here as well, and they're also super excited about it too. Like, they're a great organization, they're super friendly, very sort of like a family organization, and they're like, yeah, man, go for it, do it, like, make this happen. So it's super exciting.
Were they giving, did they give you anything like, what was some advice for it or anything like that?
Yeah, actually they did. One of the pieces of advice, I'm gonna try to find a place to put, I've got a charger happening here as well. There we go.
Well, that playlist live audio completely, there we go. The Wi-Fi must be crazy there. This is hilarious. Okay. Oh, this is so funny. It's playing out in slow motion.
I can't hear you.
Oh, he's out. Oh, he's back.
There we go.
I'm back.
That was so funny. All
You were just playing out in slow motion the entire time.
It was really funny.
That's how I am right now. I'm actually in that mode currently. I am in slow motion almost.
Geez, late nights or what?
Last night wasn't too bad. Last night was the first industry party, and I think like Gregor, my son, and I went down, but we didn't stay very long. Gregor had a meetup today. It's like a meet and greet from 10 until 1, and did that, and it went really well. And then he's got a panel at 2:55, and then Owen, my other son, has a panel at 3:50. So it's a go day. And also, you want to talk to people. I mean, part of the magic of these things is being in the same room as other content creators, like other people.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it exciting. Like, that's the cool part. But I mean, again, I'm super excited for Social Media North because we'll be able to actually replicate a little bit of the magic that they do here at Playlist Live by making it, you know, happen in Canada, which is amazing.
Yeah, there's always been, we talked about it at the last one, but there's always that kind of disconnect between Canada and the United States, even though the people are very, very similar and what they enjoy is very similar. But it always seems to be that let's try and get to the States first rather than let's grow something in Canada, which is always a little bit disappointing. But I think...
Yeah, I think that it's, you know, there's 10 times the population here in the States, and there's also much more opportunism makes it sound bad, but what I mean is, like, the people will jump on opportunity, but an opportunity doesn't have to knock very hard for Americans to go after it. Whereas Canadians are much more reserved. Canadians are much more, opportunity might knock and they'll check and look through the people, and then it'll knock again and they might look through the curtains. You know, it's sort of like a wait until they're absolutely sure. But I think that's changing as well. You know, it's also changing. I think realizing that, you know, Canada's realizing that there's some cachet to it, and that we're creating content, especially content that's as good as anywhere in the world. Definitely.
Exactly. Sure. And it's especially with like how quickly platforms are moving now. like TikTok, because that's a big one. There's a lot of creators there doing all that type of stuff, right? At Playlist, and it's like the way everything is moving so quickly. It's just if we can grab just a couple people and get that Canada that a big face going, then we're set for it, and they're gonna have continuously growing and growing and growing. But
I
let's
think it's really important to have like that, you know, taking Canada's voice to the world. But it literally keeping that in mind. It's like it's taking Canada's voice and creating in Canada, and then being able to share that with, like, you can share that all around the world. You can do it from, you know, Mississauga. You can do it from Calgary. You can do it from Iqaluit. It doesn't matter where you are. You can share that experience in the same kind of relatable experiences that people can, you know, can get value and joy from, which is great.
yeah. So for you, when you started out on Vine, it's mainly American creators, right?
A lot of them. Now there's a bunch of Canucks here as well. But yeah, it's largely American creators, and of course it's like top tier creators who are here as well. As I started talking to James Charles walked by in the background, and you know, there's like just a bunch of people here, which is great.
Yeah, that's crazy. Just the amount of people in one location that are just all doing a similar thing, and that's what all conferences are about, right? Like it's creating that centralized kind of enjoyment that everybody's together creating stuff, and it just creates that amazing cycle as well. But getting back to you, when you started out on Vine, uh, was there any pushback? Well, like not really pushback, but like was it immediate? Was there any difference between creators from the Americans and the Canadian ones?
I mean, a little bit. I mean, of course, like Vine had a whole bunch of Toronto creators who really took, like Peaks and
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about him.
Ray Lagaya and all that kind of stuff who like were in Toronto, and of course Sean Mendes and all that kind of thing. But there was certainly, like, as a Canadian creator, you certainly come down to the States and you know you're Canadian. You know that you're slightly different. Like everyone's super lovely and really great, but you just know it's like,
Yeah, that's definitely it. That's So what are the main goals for Social Media North compared to Playlist? What's the difference? Give me the elevator pitch on that.
main goals for Social Media North will be to essentially bring the industry together in Canada and make Canada realize, and Canadian content creators and brands realize that it's okay for them to work together. The pie is big enough for everybody, and then it's okay to be Canadian and enjoy Canadian content. I think there's a big thing, like it doesn't matter, you know, what kind of content it is or what medium it is. I mean, there used to be an old thing about Canadian movies and TV shows. They had to be about, you know, incest and survival. That was basically the only two themes you're allowed to choose. But it's like, no, we don't have to do that. We have, like, you know, cosmopolitan cities. We have rural stuff. We have northern stuff. But we also, like, there's a lot of, just like anywhere else in the world. I mean, it's, you know, we got a different, unique perspective as Canadians. But at the same time, a lot of the experiences we have are just human experiences. And I think that's the stuff that social media excels at, is sharing, like capturing those experiences and sharing them so that other people, no matter where they are, can go, hey, I feel that way too. So I think the idea with Social Media North is just to really galvanize the industry, really bring it together and concretely reaffirm and make everyone realize, if you're a content creator in Canada, you can do this as a job, you can do this as a living. If you're a brand or an agency, you can work with Canadian content creators. I think that's the big thing. You don't have to sort of say, well, you know, I need to go find someone who's got 20 million TikTok followers. It's like, well, you know what? You might be doing better if you go to someone who's got 100,000 TikTok followers, but speaks to a better, more relatable audience for what you're trying to sell.
That's definitely one thing. And even with like just modern marketing and how underrated influencer marketing is like you can find someone with those 30 million followers, but they're going to have an agent. They're going to have all of these other people that are going to be the middlemen in between. And you're going to get, the message is going to get split up because it's going to become more corporatized rather than talking to someone with the 100,000 followers that most likely doesn't have an agent, doesn't have a manager. And it's just them speaking from their heart for whatever product it is. And that's like definitely an underrated topic, especially for Canada, because I rarely see an ad with a Canadian creator going through whatever.
I mean, you know, I've been saying to people a number of times that I've been doing this since 2013 as a job, but I've survived largely on American brands and brand deals up until about a year and a half ago, when it suddenly turned into now Canadian brands are realizing. So I think that will change dramatically. And I honestly, not to overstate the effect of Social Media North, but I think events like Social Media North will make Canada, the social media industry in Canada, realize, oh, God, there's like a whole bunch of people here we can work with. Let's do this. And I've been saying as well that the Canadian market seems to be about 5 to 6 years behind the American market. Like, I think that, which is great as well. It's horrible, but it's also great because it creates an opportunity for people like, like the Maple Crew or Social Media North in general, so that you can take advantage of it. Go, well, listen, this thing works. It's already been tested. It's already happening in the States. Let's do the same thing here, except with a Canadian spin.
Yeah, for the people that can do the research, especially on this, because history repeats itself constantly. You can look back and kind of tell what's happening. If we take the time, I think I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to look back a little bit further for the 6 months or 6 years that you're talking about, and just kind of find a way that's going to better fit to create a better image for everybody.
I think we can all learn from sort of like the mistakes that people made in those times as well. I think people thought, I think it's important for content creators to be platform agnostic. You have to create a brand that is spread across not just TikTok, not just Twitter, not just Instagram, so that if something happens, you've still got an audience. You've still got someone to create for. I think that's super important to remember as a lesson from the past 6 years, for sure. And I think that also the lesson is to value what you're doing. Like, there is a lot of value in associating yourself / your brand with another brand. That's a valuable thing.
Especially when you don't know, maybe the brand's going to play out and even get bigger. That's one thing. And being brand platform, like being able to go cross platform is amazing. And especially you learn like the best from anybody, because massive following, no hits or anything like that, but massive following on Vine.
I'm sorry. Massive following on Vine, and then they just disappear, right?
They just go, exactly, man. Yeah, that's exactly it. Is that, the notion that a social media platform could disappear you couldn't even imagine that before Vine disappeared. And I think the big lesson now is, like, you've got a lot of people who are being coming up on TikTok, and they're very successful, and it's an amazing platform, and it's super fun. But it's like, this is awesome. However, you need to be bigger than that. Because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if the algorithm is going to change. You don't know if the ownership change. You don't know if there's going to be, especially with TikTok, there's going to be government regulation that stops things happening. You just have to be ready. Yeah, you have to be ready for that stuff.
Yeah, especially with the way the political climate is now and all the viruses going around. You never know what's happening. There's always too much to worry about, and that's a big thing, especially if you can find a way to, even with the panels, like for example, for the Social Media North panels. Yeah, I was thinking about it. A good idea would be to record all of them for afterwards, and then release them as like a podcast, and then you can have the Social Media North podcast, everything you can even market for next year's.
One of our plans actually from Social Media North is to create, I don't know if you're familiar with Tube Filter, which is a great social media focused newsletter site and news site basically. Yep. And I think that we'll probably try to replicate something like that from Social Media North for the Canadian market, so that we can keep on top of news and what's happening, and also kind of maintain the momentum we're going to get going from Social Media North.
It's definitely true, because I feel it's slowly humming, and I can hear, like, from the last week when we talked, it was still going, and now it's going and going. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's within the week there's been a big change, and I can see that, and it's like more and more crazy cool creators are coming on. The panels, that's one thing that I'm really, really excited for, just because you don't really get that time to talk to people, or like you don't get to necessarily hear them, especially with some of the smaller creators and what they do. You never find out what they truly want to say unless you have a long form kind of podcast or anything like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I think that the panels are great because it's a nice introduction to people, and you get a sort of a taste of what they do. And then if you have the opportunity to chat with them afterwards, which is, I think, the strength of these events is just these types of events like Social Media North and Playlist, is being able to just like see somebody and like talk to them, and then you get incredible insights and just inspiration and stuff, which is awesome.
It's just a cool conversation. What's an example of like a really good kind of conversation that's either sparked an idea or something like that at one of the conferences that you've been to?
We just had lunch in the green room here, and spoke to a guy named Eric Artel, who's quite big on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's like 1 million or 3 million or 4 million. I don't know. He's got a lot of millions.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a super nice guy. We've known him for a long time, since the Vine days. And he was giving us some great insights about what he was thinking with TikTok, what's happening, and how just different things like, this works, this doesn't work. And it's just insightful. You should have come away from that stuff going, well, I kind of thought about this stuff, but now you're saying it. So that makes me think, okay, it's not just me.
Yeah.
I think I'm right. And I can go on from there and make my own conclusions. So, yeah.
And yeah, we've talked about it in the past, but it was like when you try and bring up a social media thing with your buddies.
Yeah.
And everybody,
yeah.
Everybody would just be like, what are you talking about? What do you mean ratio? What do you mean analytics?
Exactly.
What
Exactly.
are you an alien right now? Like, that's the one thing where you find a large group of people that actually speak your language when it comes to social media.
Yeah, and I think that's really, sorry, I just have to respond to a text here on my watch, hopefully, in 1 second again.
Yeah, but that's definitely one of those interesting things that you don't always think about the main focus of it, where it's like you might have a couple people that understand what you're saying just because they've grown it through just being popular through schools or something like that. But once you step into that social media world and you really go full tilt into it, you never really find someone unless they're doing the same thing as you.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's such a massive industry, but at the same time, I think that it's a massive industry, but it's also a very small industry. Like, we come to Playlist, and one of the things Owen said when we arrived on Thursday night was, this feels so familiar. And you get to see people each year. Like we know so many people who are involved in social media who are doing stuff. And it's still a tiny slice of the world, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But the great thing is that I can talk to anybody about, about, like you said, ratios and engagement and what works, and how on TikTok you can't do a long setup. It already has to be in motion and all that kind of stuff. It's just really fascinating, and I love it. It's a huge appeal to me to be able to just chat with someone, like talk shop, which is great.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about it. Like, you never really find those. It's a lot of the time it's a culture, right?
Everybody
has, even between platforms. YouTube, you have everybody doing kind of similar things and switching around, and there's tons of different multicultural like groups within that. And like TikTok, you have the communities that people build through. Just in a week, you'll see different trends that pop up, right? And everybody hops on them or they don't, and that type of stuff. And it follows, and it really breaks down. That's one thing that you'll never really be able to get within real life, because it changes so much, right? Where it's a hard thing to quantify.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's still like, social media is still in its infancy, like especially content creation. I was on a panel yesterday, and some people who were like veterans, YouTubers, have been like, I've been doing this for 4 years. And I'm like, 4 years? Man, that's nothing. But of course, it's an eternity in social media and YouTube, right? There's so many changes that happened in 4 years. So we're still like at the very beginning stages of this, and I think it's really important, if you want to get into it, to be able to connect with other people who are doing it, because then you can actually keep on top of the changes and be prepared for them, or at least be able to go complain about them with someone who also understands.
Yeah, that's true. Talking shop's the best thing to get through things. So how was your panel? Like, what did you have to talk about?
So the panel I was on yesterday was, wait, can I do this? And it was all about people who would like to be content creators, and if they're, what's involved in that beyond just the technical aspect, but also like the psychological aspect, the time commitment, just all the good and the bad stuff that goes along with it. And it was great. It was really interesting, and people were asking really good questions, and the moderator was good, and yeah, it was all a nice panel. And today, Gregor's panel is talking about working with brands, and then Owen's panel is talking about music and social media. And then tomorrow I'm moderating a panel on families who do social media. So I'm the moderator in that, and there's a bunch of people on the panel who have kids who are a lot cuter than mine.
That's an interesting aspect, actually. So since you've got that big family channel, right? And what was it? How did you describe it last time?
I described it as
the everyday man or something like that.
Yeah, the everyman. So the everyman, exactly. And it's I have the aspirational quality of someone going, well, he's a schlub, And if he can have fun at his age, maybe I will be able to too. So that's kind of the aspirational quality.
Yeah, that's funny. But with the family, like, how does that play in? Like, is there ever issues where everybody's kind of like worrying about likes, or that's probably a bad thing, but
I mean, no one. I don't think we've never really done like a family vlog, or we haven't done that type of thing. But we've done lots of content as a family.
Yeah.
But there's never been a situation where we've been going like individually going, oh well, I hope our likes are good. I don't think that's really where we were. And plus the content was always kind of the Brittlestar content, and then the family happened to be in it. So if it sucked, it was because Brittlestar sucked, not because the family sucked. It's I think the big rule we had for working as a family was because Owen and Greg were young when we started. They were like 11 and 14, and our rule was always, if they don't want to do it, the kids don't want to be in the video, they don't have to be in a video. And it's happened before. We've been ready to film a video somewhere for a campaign or something, and one of them was like, no, and we're like, okay, you're not in it, you don't have to be in it. We'd like write that into our contracts of like, you might not get all four of us because one of us might not be into it.
That's a good like backup plan too, though, because especially I can't even imagine like 11 having all these big videos too. So that level of just like having it set up and figuring it out was just brilliant, really. Just because like that's, especially having that many eyes on, like for the people that are really really young and get, like we were talking about the Bieber.
Oh geez, what's up, man?
That's not Justin Bieber.
I only want to talk to Justin Bieber.
Listen, you'll meet Carson at Social Media North.
I'll see you soon, buddy.
Hi, buddy.
There you go. You got talking to my ear. Is that how he hears you?
Hi, buddy.
I think that was quieter. That makes no sense.
Oh, look, it's Gregor.
Yo, what's up?
That's Carson. There you go. All right, you go. I'm doing a thing.
You do your thing.
All right, get out of here.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like even just the walk-ups, even though it's your family members, but it's like you can meet crazy amounts of people.
Totally, and I think the thing that's cool is that a lot of people who create social media are fans of social media content, right?
Yeah.
So you see people like like this, I don't know, the kombucha girl, Brittany Broski, like she's right there.
Oh really?
But
That's crazy.
So it's fun. Like you sort of meet them, be like, I know you, I like your stuff, or you're funny, or whatever. And usually they have a general idea of who you are, and if not, they're like, okay, great, and then you get to become friends, and it's all good. Yeah, it's good.
That's great. You're definitely busy. I'll let you go by now. But this has been great.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm very excited.
Thanks so much for having me again, man.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm very very excited for Social Media North. It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be one of the next big step for Canada. 100%. You're leading the charge. So.
I hope so, man. It's going to be super fun. The Friday is going to be amazing. Amazing fireside chat's going to be kicking off. And then Friday night, the industry party has got a special guest coming in. It's going to be pretty wild. And then Saturday's going to be super fun. Lots of people wandering around, hanging out. And there's going to be a closing party for featured guests and staff on Saturday night. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. I'm excited, man. Enjoy the rest of the playlist.
Thanks so much. Good job. See ya.